back live again. We have not done a Facebook Live version of our weekly member spotlight in quite some time. So I hope you're seeing this. I am very excited to be here today with another edition of the weekly member spotlight. Again, we've had some technology challenges over the last, I don't know, feels like a few months, and we've recorded them and then posted them. So hopefully you're seeing this live and you're surprised and you're excited to watch another edition. Before we dive into our interview, though, I did want to make mention next Friday, it's not going to be raining. We're not going to have severe weather warnings across the tri-state area. We're going to be on a boat in the river celebrating another opportunity to come together as the GCNKAA has our 2022 B&B Riverboat Cruise. So I hope you're registered. If you're not, I have no idea how many spaces, if any, are left. You will want to call today if you have not already registered to see if you can be a part of that. Every event we have had in person is sold out pretty quickly. And I know that because I forgot to register for an event and didn't get to go not too long ago. So make sure you get registered. Okay, with our business end of things out of the way, I'm very excited to sit down today with someone, I don't know if he's a familiar face to you. He's a little bit of a familiar face to me, but our guest this morning is Mr. Ryan Shea. Ryan is a regional manager with Uptown Rental Properties. And I grabbed him at one of our last events, the day of the races, and I said, Mr. Shea, we are trying to get some more faces for our weekly member spotlight. How do you feel about that? And he said, sign me up. So good morning and welcome, Ryan.
Good morning.
Well, thank you for being here. I know I just gave you an informal introduction, but can I ask you to take a moment and tell everyone a little bit about who you are, what you do with Uptown, and maybe how long you've been in the business?
Yeah, definitely. So I've only been in the business, I'd say only, it's been about 5 years now. I had switched over from food service industry, which I think is a great transition for people looking to make the move into property management, and started off as an assistant property manager. And it's been one thing after another, just running up the ladder since then. I couldn't remember if when I initially reached out, I think I was technically still an area manager, but yeah, over the past month and a half, I've been promoted to a regional manager with Uptown, and that basically means anything that is dealing with conventional housing. So we do a lot of student housing for those that aren't familiar with the Cincinnati Clifton area. That's a bulk of our stuff, but anything that's conventional housing, I'm technically responsible for now.
Well, congrats. I was not aware of your recent promotion. That's exciting. I have a couple of things we're going to unpack just right out of the gate here. First and foremost, you say 5 years, like that is a short amount of time. I think if you've been in this business for any amount of time, you subscribe to the theory that a day in property management is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day. Like there is no constant time. And then you factor in that maybe half of your time has been during the pandemic. Oh my goodness. You've basically grown up in this industry then, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been all over. I've been up in Westchester is where I started. We ended up selling that. So then I moved down to Clifton, and now I'm in Northern Kentucky. I'm in downtown proper, and I'm just all over the board. But yeah, it's been, like you said, no 2 days have been the same. And it feels like time has been very fluid since the journeys began.
Well, one thing that I love so much about probably every single person I've ever talked to in property management is that we all get into it by accident. Sometimes we have a relative in it, sometimes we know people, but it's completely accidental. Like you don't go into your second grade first day of school and someone say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you say, a regional manager for a property management company. So how did that transition come about with you moving from food services into property management? What was your accidental introduction?
I think I'm gonna brag, and I think I might have the most interesting falling into property management story of anyone you've interviewed. So I was in between jobs. I was trying to figure out what the next step was, and I wanted something that was more consistent, 9 to 5 versus bartending late evenings. And I actually applied for assistant property manager position up in Westchester with Uptown from a Craigslist ad.
Wow. Craigslist was a thing 5 years ago?
Yeah, so a Craigslist ad ended up me on this 5-year journey. I think the first person I actually ended up interviewing, because it was so obtuse of a way to get my foot in the door, was I ended up interviewing with one of the regional managers. So it's kind of come full circle now.
Wow, well, that is pretty interesting and random. And I'll tell you, I won't name names because I'm gonna offend anyone, though everyone I know knows this person. The absolute best hire that I have ever made in my entire life was a server. And she knew someone who lived at the property where I was the manager, and I hired her. And there is just no end to the amount of authenticity that she had. It was such a natural progression to do, you know, food service and bartending, and she worked at a, Ruby Tuesdays actually. And she just came right in and knew how to do what we do, which is take care of people, right? We rent apartments and we take care of people. And the renting of the apartments is the easy part, because apartments are just apartments, really. It's the people that make all the difference. And of course, location and price and all of that. So, well, we all locally know Uptown very well, and we've interviewed several people from Uptown recently, so that's been exciting. Tell us a little bit about your new role, your portfolio. What exactly is it that you're doing these days for Uptown?
Yeah, so new role is basically anything conventional housing. I kind of my week, I try to keep it pretty structured, but as we know in the business, things obviously get moved around depending on what needs your attention immediately. We're constantly developing new stuff. I know we got some new stuff in the works down in Kentucky, which is where I've been spending a decent amount of time. And then obviously renovations is something that we're always thinking about, where we're updating and renovating a lot of stuff in the downtown market. One thing that's been kind of the bulk of my time for the past, I'd say almost 6 months at this point, is we have a bunch of scattered, so anything from a 2-family to a 81 unit building out in the Hyde Park, Oakley area. Roughly was 350 units before. We increased that portfolio size by 50%, adding on 180 units that we're now third-party managing. So getting all of that under the belt has been very, very busy over the past couple months.
That's exciting. Good for you. And third-party management, is that new, or have you always done a little something in that?
So our company's done a little bit of that with University Station in the Xavier market, but for the conventional side, it's a little bit newer. So it's kind of there's always growing pains when you have something new. It's you're not an owner investor, so you're not just going to spend the money right away. You have to think about, well, wait a minute, I need to make sure that I can do this thing that I may normally want to do, but get a sign off before. I'd rather ask for permission than forgiveness, sort of thing.
I don't know if I subscribe to that theory, but I hear you. I'm sure you're
at least in this case.
I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. Well, having been in the business and gone through the progression of being in a couple of different roles, I'm sure you have a lot of memorable stories. What's one of your favorite stories to share about your experience thus far in property management?
I have plenty of good stories, but I think my callback and go-to one is always, I think everyone has a clear moment or story of where they're like, okay, yep, I can survive, I can get through, I can do this sort of thing. And this goes all the way back to when I was an assistant property manager up in Westchester. I can't remember how many months in, but I was still pretty green behind the ears. And I was working the weekend. And of course, it's either 3 p.m. on a Friday or the weekend, when the worst of the worst possible things can happen without fail. So I can't remember how many units it was, but we had a giant kind of week like we've been having, super thunderstorms, rain, etc., and multiple units had taken on inches of water and stuff. And it was kind of, well, what are we going to do? And I was able to resolve the situation without having to bug any of the other staff or property manager or stuff like that. And at the end of the day, I was like, okay, I could figure this out by myself. I think I can get through anything in the industry.
It is funny. Everyone does have that story, and people, when I ask the question, they're like, do you want me to share the bad stuff or the good stuff? I mean, just whatever comes to mind. We all kind of have our war stories, of course. And
Yep.
I love that you kind of qualified that by saying it's what gave you confidence in your ability to do what you do. So that's good. Well, I know that you, having been in the industry for the last few years, you've invested some time into earning the designation, and you're working on another one. Tell us a little bit about your education journey and how you've prepared yourself to be in the position of regional manager now.
Definitely, yeah. So one of the things that I love that Uptown kind of encourages their employees to do is to getting some of the certifications, etc. I remember, it seems like it's been forever, and actually, I'm in a new office, so I don't think I've brought over my certification for my CAM. I got to get that over here. But yeah, CAM was, I think some people don't enjoy learning and education as much as I do. But CAM was great. I loved learning all the different parts of the industry and kind of just opening my eyes to things that I wouldn't necessarily thought of. But I feel like I'm also a learner by nature. So I think I was the first one to take the test and took it as soon as we were able to, just to get it done. And I had teachers like, yeah, everyone else is sitting on it. But yeah, definitely. And I think I have another qualification coming up for an area-based one. I can't remember which one it is. Yeah, CAPS. I was like, I've got that coming up. I think that's in August, so I should probably take a little bit more time to get prepared for that. But I definitely enjoy the qualifications and opportunities that are out there for kind of getting more familiar and more standardized education in the industry.
Well, I am a very big advocate of the education that our industry, that our local association and the national association provides. And I actually happened to run into you out in San Diego a few weeks ago at the education conference for the National Apartment Association. What was your experience like at NAA?
Oh, it was phenomenal. I would highly recommend it to anyone that has the opportunity to go. And it's really what you make of it. I think the educational courses were great, but even more so for me personally, some of the motivational speakers or the keynote speakers they had just kind of, they helped reinvigorate that passion for, okay, after the end of that trip, I was ready to come to work on Monday and I was like, let's hit the ground running. I want to be the best at what I'm doing. And I want to not only succeed for myself, but bring my team up with me in the company as well. So I definitely recommend it for anyone that has the opportunity.
Were you and I in the same session together with the one about the human revolution?
Yep. Yeah.
I think that was my favorite one. Did you have a favorite session that you attended?
So I do think the human revolution was probably my favorite session as well. When it comes to speakers, I think Magic Johnson did an amazing job, but there was a smaller speaker, Anthony Trucks, who just kind of had an amazing story of all these adversities and challenges that he'd overcome. And just, even with those challenges and struggles, you still want to look at yourself and say, am I happy with what I'm doing? And am I being the best version of myself? And I think that definitely resonated with me and kind of gave me a little kick in the butt to make sure I was taking advantage of all the opportunities presented to me.
I love that. And I'll tell you, the reason that I am in this business after all these years, having accidentally gotten in it and, had many opportunities along the way to do something different or, make choices about staying in and moving on, is because of the people. And I just love the stories. And I love so much that particular session talked about how we've gone through a lot of necessary phases in life and in our country and in the world. And technology was a big part of that, but getting back to the basic root and understanding that we are all human beings trying to have human experiences. That's why I love this business so much. We live with our customers and they experience their entire lives under our roofs, and that is super powerful. So I loved it too. I'm so glad you got to experience it. And Jessica, one of your fellow Uptown coworkers, was part of our weekly member spotlight last week, and that was her favorite moment when I asked to share a story. Her story was getting to attend Departmentalize. So I'm very glad to hear that. I'd love to ask you, what kind of advice would you offer up to someone who accidentally has the opportunity to join this industry, or someone who's maybe thinking about, how do I progress my career?
I would say the best thing you can do is being open to being outside of your comfort zone. I think the time that you're going to learn the most is when you're outside of your comfort zone. And I would say, even with some of the promotions I've gotten, I would always feel ready, but it's always that kind of gut nervousness of, you can do it, but what happens if you trip or fall? And a lot of the times when you trip or fall, that's when you learn the most. So I'd be willing to make mistakes and just make sure that you're learning from them.
Fabulous. I could not have said that any better. And I definitely agree with every word of that. Well, thank you so much. I would love to shift gears and get to know you a little bit on a personal level if you're ready to go into the next phase of our interview.
Definitely.
All right. Well, I loved your answer to the very first question I'm going to ask you, but tell me a little bit about your family.
Yeah, my family is about as chaotic as it can get. love them all to death. I am the oldest of technically five siblings. I've got four, they're all half siblings. So I've got three half sisters and one half brother. I'm extra close with two of them, and the other two I don't get to see as often, unfortunately. But my mom is kind of my rock. I think we're actually planning to grab some food this weekend. And then my dad's side of the family, I have more aunts and uncles than I can count on my fingers and toes, and it's hard to keep track of everyone and keep up with everyone. But they're always so inviting and welcoming, and it's nice to know that no matter what's going on in my life, there's someone thinking about and someone that cares about me.
That. And I'll tell you what I just heard you describe is why you're so qualified to be in property management. Chaotic family and oldest of five siblings. So you're a natural born leader and you can multitask, right?
Very true. Very true.
You mentioned you might get some food with your mom. What is your favorite food to enjoy?
So my favorite food, and I'm very, very picky about it, is fresh sushi. I absolutely love fresh sushi. Sorry. Yeah, was able to get some while we were out in San Diego, so that was
I was
definitely
gonna say, where
a
does
plus.
one go in the greater Cincinnati area to have anything close to being fresh sushi?
I've thrown in the towel when it comes to Cincinnati. I know if I'm in Cincinnati and I'm getting sushi, it's probably going to be a more Americanized roll type, which is it's its own type of fare, and it's just as enjoyable. But I'm more of a sashimi, like straight fish sort of. I could eat it all day if I was allowed to, and if I had access to it.
So I am under no circumstances sushi of any kind, maybe California roll if I'm trying to look or feel sophisticated. But in San Diego, a friend of mine invited me to go have lunch, and we went to, I think it was the Italian Village area, and there was a fresh seafood restaurant that we went to, and the server was explaining how every morning the fishermen come in to the restaurant and let them, select the fresh catches of the day, and from that they serve their catches and make all their things. And I'm like, what in the world? So how do you learn, being from Ohio, that you love sushi and fresh sushi and that kind of delicatessen? What's the word? Delicacy.
Yeah. The only way I found out that I enjoyed it and loved it as much as I do is when I was over in Japan. I went over to Japan when I was for my 18th birthday for my spring break. I kind of treated myself, and I went over to Japan right before my 18th birthday by myself to Tokyo for a weekend. Yeah, once I had some sushi over there, I was like, okay, this is the most delicious thing in the world.
Wow.
It's also helps that it's a lot more affordable over there just because they have so much access to it. But yeah, that's kind of when I fell in love with it.
Nice. Well, that was kind of one of the other questions. What one of your favorite vacations? So what made you choose to go there?
I just always kind of was very interested with the culture. I had this weird, I guess, rebellious mindset when it came to high school that we had to take another language, and I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to do Spanish. I didn't want to do French, whatever it was. And I was fortunate enough to be doing post-secondary, so I had a little bit wider pool of classes to choose from since I had some college classes, and I ended up taking Japanese and kind of just really hit it off with the teacher. And he was great and kind of took me under his wing and just kind of ran with it from there. I apparently spoke it really well and just was a natural for it. And yeah, kind of exploded from there.
Well, can you say, I don't know, good afternoon, I hope you have a great weekend in Japanese, just so I can hear what that sounds like? Or
Yeah,
anything, like anything. I don't know what anything.
yeah. Ohayou gozaimasu. Konshimatsu genki de ne. Like, yeah.
Wow. So how often do you have the occasion to speak Japanese?
It's become fewer and far. The instances that I get to practice it are becoming farther and farther apart. I used to have a handful of buddies that were local and whatnot, but as we've kind of grown up into our own careers, we're scattering throughout the states, so we don't get to keep up as much anymore. But every so often we'll get on a Skype call or something and catch up over drinks, and it ends up devolving into like half English, half Japanese sort of conversation.
Well, it's interesting. I went to high school with a guy that I was not, I mean, he was my sister's age, so he's a year younger than me, and I just knew who he was, but we somehow connected on social media, and he moved to Japan, and married a Japanese woman and teaches English there. And he posts stuff all the time, and it seems extremely interesting and unique, especially someone from Cincinnati. Again, you're right. I kind of chuckled. I wanted to do something different in college with language. So I took American Sign Language as my foreign language because I had already taken 3 years of French. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with any of these languages. I'm not going to use them other than maybe to sound, I don't know, interesting at a party sometime in my life. But Japanese is certainly interesting. And I know you put that down as your random fun fact that Japanese was, you spoke fluent Japanese. So I had to ask you, not to put you on the spot, to say something here. Well, when you're not eating sushi or recalling your best vacation ever, what do you like to do in your downtime? Any hobbies?
Yeah, no, I think I've grown up playing soccer, so being active is definitely a huge thing for me. But trying to these days do it more socially. So just joined a buddy for some co-ed kickball last evening. I think we're planning to try and get a co-ed soccer group together. But even if it's just going to the gym with a buddy or someone new to get them involved with it, something that lets me stay active and just kind of meet new people is kind of been the go-to lately.
Well, that's a lot of fun, and definitely sounds like you're active and there's no shortage of activities. I just learned about this underground kickball and dodgeball phenomenon. I'm like, I had no idea that was such a thing, but now you're probably the third or fourth person that's mentioned that lately. I think that's pretty funny. I thought that was just something we used to play in, fifth grade gym class.
Yeah, no, people have really run away with what can we get people together to do? And kickball and dodgeball seem to, I guess, pull out our childhood memories. And
I mean, even someone like me could play kickball or dodgeball. So I am here for that. And pickleball is another huge thing right now. So well, what about books? Are you a reader? And if so, what's one of your favorite books?
So I will honestly admit I do not read nearly as much as I probably should. I read a book once every couple of years probably, and it's bad because I probably go back to the same books that I've already read. It was actually funny because I can't remember if it was Magic Johnson or someone else that was speaking at Apartmentalize, but they had actually asked if anybody had read The Alchemist, and that's
Danica Patrick.
Okay, it was Danica Patrick. That's who it was. And yeah, she was like, "Has anyone read this?" And me and our CFO are sitting next to each other. We're both like, hand in the air, and it's like I've read that book at least 3 times, and I was like, it's been a couple of years, so it might be time to kind of go back and reread it again. But yeah,
I made a note of that because I've not read that book, and I am a very avid reader. Like I read multiple books a month, and it's funny because I think a lot of people in this day and age, you're either a reader or you're not, which is fine. I don't think being a reader makes you any different of a person. Just it's your hobby, passion. Some people love it and some people do not. And I think podcast and TV and like all the things, we all consume whatever our genre is in whatever way that is, most desirable to us. But I wrote that down because it absolutely sounds like something I should read. I've heard of it, obviously, and I'm like, I need to do that. But I am like engrossed in a couple of series and a genre right now that I'm like, maybe when another version of myself evolves, I'll make it to that book. But I remember her talking that she's not much of a reader, but that book is like, that's her fave. Well, I know you made mention you're not a huge podcast listener, and I was trying to recall if I had any to recommend. And, since we probably have different, you're not going to listen to all the girl power and the things like that I would listen to. I won't recommend any, but I made a note. I'm like, there were a couple that I wrote down that people I've talked to have recommended or subscribed to. Also, Megan Lahan, who is the president of the Apartment Association Outreach, and she's the COO or CEO of PLK. She started a podcast a couple of years ago, and it's called Everyday Badass. And it's really just her interviewing people that have interesting stories in life. And so I absolutely love it. I know she was taking a little bit of a hiatus with her summer and whatnot, but you can go back and look at that one. And she's got people from every walk of life, a lot of local people, business owners, things like that, in and out of the industry. And I would highly recommend that one. So Well, I'm just taking a look here at my notes, Ryan, and I feel like we have talked so much, and I don't know if there's anything that I missed. Are there any other random fun facts, anything you want to cover that I haven't talked about already with you?
No, not that I can think of off the hand. Not you got me thinking about that. Yeah, dipping my toes in the podcast water lately, and it like you said, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a specific genre because they'll invite someone on and talk about something entirely different. That's I think part of what I love about it. I was listening to a food podcast and felt like I got some of the best life advice I've ever been given. So
Well, I subscribe to like a ton of them, and I go in and out. Again, it, I just have seasons of life like everyone else, and so I go in and out of them. And I like to listen to crime ones because it's fun and they're short, and it's like an
yeah,
episode of something, and then psychology ones and business ones. Like there's a ton of them for sure. But it is just a nice way to, I why I love reading so much is if I don't intentionally put things in my mind that are not real, then I get really not a good version of myself. So I like
makes
to
sense.
expand my mind, and podcasts I think really help do that too. So
Yeah.
well, the way I like to end all of these interviews, and it's maybe my favorite question, I like it when I know the people because I want to see if they're self-aware or not, but I'm kind of getting to know you. So this question, I'll just have to take you at your word here. How do you think the people who have worked with you in your career thus far would describe you as a leader?
Ooh, that's a good question. I at least hope that they all know that I truly strive and stress that I never want them to feel alone or that I'm inaccessible. My job is truly to make sure that they're succeeding. So I hope that they never feel like they're on an island or that I'm not giving them the right tools or support. And yeah, that they know that they always have someone in their corner, sort of thing.
Well, I love that very much. And that is an important characteristic of a leader is to be accessible and to be ready to do whatever it takes because you cannot predict, plan, or schedule your life in this business. You have to for certain things, obviously, but for the most part, what we do is very reactive to what's going on around us, to people needing us, to people needing apartments, to things going on in apartments. And so having someone who's just there for you when you need them is a very important thing. So well, Ryan, I could not tell you how excited I was to sit down. Thank you for making yourself available and for being so open and candid during this initiative. I look forward to seeing you. Are you going to the riverboat cruise next week?
I don't think I'm going next week. I have to double check. I think we have a couple tickets, but I have to double check.
Well, if I don't see you there, I'll be looking for you at the next event. I hope you have a
Definitely.
great weekend. Enjoy time with your family and happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Have a good weekend.
You too. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you back again next week for another edition, hopefully live, for the Weekly Member Spotlight. Thank you.